Right, Algebra 1 students, we are on section 4.2. I am on page 103 in your student journal. So if you need to pause the video and get to 103, you should do that now. So section 4.2 is again about writing an equation of a line, and the form that we have already learned is this one, which we called slope-intercept, because the equation contained a slope and the y-intercept. So this was called slope-intercept form, which is a nice form. The one issue with it though is you need the y-intercept. For any equation of a line, you need a point and a slope. For slope-intercept form, you need the y-intercept. So there is another form called point-slope form. And the name makes perfect sense, because to write an equation for a line in point-slope form, you need a point and a slope. Okay, a point, which would be an xy, and a slope, which would be an m, a rise over run, and it would be a number. So we need a point and a slope to write an equation of a line in point-slope form. So I would, put some stars, put some arrows next to here. This is what 4.2 is all about, point-slope form. This is the equation. I wish it was a little bigger. We're going to go down here where the parts are labeled. So this is what point-slope form looks like before you plug in your point and your slope. So the m, you're used to that. That is where your slope is going to go. This x and y with the small subscripts are your point. So x1, y1 is just going to be an x comma y, or the point on your line. The x and y without the subscript are going to stay right there. When you write the equation of this line, you're going to have an x and a y in it. The parts that you are going to fill in numbers are the m, the x1, and the y1. So you're going to have your point and your slope. All right, so this is an example of an equation of a line already in point-slope form. So if you look at this and compare it to what we have up here, let me write the standard form up here. You can see the slope, which we represent with m. The slope is 2, so I'm going to say m equals 2, and that's my slope. And you can see here is my x with the subscript. Here is my x. Here is the y with the subscript. Here is my y. Our equation has the minus signs in it, so that's why we have a minus sign here, but we don't have a minus sign here. So that is something that's a little different, right? So let's think about what's happening there. But first of all, we know the slope is 2. Minus sign, y1, 3. So I know my point has a y value of 3. Now if you look at this, this doesn't exactly match up. Minus sign, plus sign. So what happened here? What happened to this minus sign? It's part of the standard form for point slope. So there had to be a minus there at some point. What happened was, what we actually have here, our x value is a -4, and the minus went in front of it. So before all of this was simplified, it looked like this. So when you minus a negative, you change that into a positive. So this is the simplified form. But when whoever was writing this equation, when they were plugging in their x value, they plugged in a -4. So then they had x minus a negative, and they simplified it to a positive. So our point here was actually a -4. All right, let's practice doing a few of these. So turn to page 104, and let's look at some examples. I recommend maybe right now you pause the video, write point slope form at the top, so you have that there. And we're going to do examples 1, 3, and 4. It also might be a good idea to write point slope form under each of those, just like I've done. And if you pause the video, you'll be able to see them. Okay, let's look at number 1. So this is my standard form of point slope. This is my point, and this is my slope. So if you want to, above here, label this x1, y1. So the plain old x, or the plain old y and the plain old x, I call it, the ones without the subscript, those are going to stay. The minus, so I'm just doing a copy job now, y and minus. Y with the little subscript is where I'm going to substitute in my y value. My y value is 1, so I'm going to put a 1 in there. Equals, that's a copy job. M, need to put a number in there. M is -3, so I'm going to put -3 in there. So these are all y1, m, and x1 are where I'm substituting a value in. Parenthesis, copy job, x, copy job, minus, copy job. X subscript 1, I need to put a value in there, and in our example, it's -2. So I would recommend you wrap that -2 up in parentheses. And then this is our big parenthesis. We cannot leave these in this form. Minusing a negative always needs to be simplified. So I'm going to copy y minus 1 equals -3, copy the parenthesis, copy the x. Minusing a negative, remember we say turn that into a giant plus, so that would become +2. So here's my equation for the line in point slope form. All I needed to write it was a point and a slope. Any point on the line will do. I don't need the y-intercept. But yeah, try this one. I know we've only done one, but try it yourself. Pause the video and try that. And then come back and see how you did. Okay, if you pause this one, hopefully you labeled, this is your x1, this is your y1, this is your m. So this y and this subtract is a copy job. Y sub 1 is where I'm going to substitute in this case, my -2. Whenever you have a negative, wrap it up in parentheses. Equal sign. M, that's where I need to do a substitution, is -1. Parenthesis, plain old x, copy job, minus, copy job. X sub 1, that's where I need to do a substitution. It's -1 in this example. It's a negative, so wrap it up in parentheses. Now this one needs some simplifying. Wherever you have minus a negative, we want to write that as a plus. Let me make this parentheses more obvious there. So this is going to become y plus 2, minusing a negative, we make a giant plus, equals -1, keep your slope out there, parenthesis x, that's a copy job. Remember, your final equations will always have a plain old y and a plain old x. Minusing a negative, make that into a giant plus 1, right parenthesis. So we are substituting in every time our point right here and our slope right here. It might seem weird when you're substituting in the point that the y comes first if I'm reading the equation from left to right, but the